Hey everybody, this is Amazing Fantasy Football. I'm Chris, and over there is the Bert to my Ernie.
This is really weird, Chris, but I'm Josh. It's really weird.
A weird fit. Yeah, right. So for those regular fans of the show, we're flipping things around from this point forward, and
it's making me uncomfortable.
Basically, alternating intro / main host and the news, so we can, I don't know, talk in a different order. Yeah, something like that.
Okay, keep going.
Keep going.
Maybe it'll stop being weird.
No, probably not. How are you doing this week, Josh?
I'm really weirded out at the moment.
Sounds good. I'm having a great week, man. What can I say? Life is good.
I didn't ask because I don't care.
We are back this week to give you amazing fantasy advice on who you should start this week at running back and wide receiver position, who you should stream at the tight end and quarterback position, although tight end's a little thin this week, and our sleepers of
Unlike
the week.
me.
Reminder, the teams on bye this week include the Browns, Cowboys, Broncos, Giants, Steelers, and Niners. But before we get... Did I miss one?
No, I was just messing with you.
It worked. So before we get to our Fave 5 and our streamers and our sleepers and whatnot, I believe, Josh, you've got some news for us.
I do have news for someone that is not me. James Conner, running back for the Arizona Cardinals, practiced in a limited fashion yesterday. I have no updates on today. Remember, he has a rib injury that has sidelined him for multiple weeks already. The Cardinals have placed Darrell Williams on the IR yesterday with a hip injury. J.K. Dobbins, John Harbaugh said today that his surgery was a smashing success for as he can tell now. I don't know what all that means, but whatever. Rashad Bateman, just in earlier today, is out for the rest of the season, undergoing a surgery on his foot with a Lisfranc injury. That's foot, right, Chris? Yeah, foot surgery.
Arch, I think, of your foot, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, something like that. I didn't realize the arch of my foot was called the Lisfranc. That's a bad joke. That's a bad joke. Anyways, Mark Andrews, he is questionable so far for this week. He has yet to practice. He has the shoulder and ankle injury.
To be clear, he wouldn't have practiced Wednesday because it's a Monday night game.
Right. So, like, more on Mark Andrews on Friday and Saturday. And if you are a Mark Andrews manager, maybe more on what you should do about him later in this show. We will probably talk about it fairly extensively. We have a little part of the show carved out for it.
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard, running back for the Carolina Panthers, he missed last week with an ankle injury. Practiced in limited capacity today. David Njoku is going to be out again this week with his... I don't have it written down. What?
I'll look. A hamstring, maybe? I'll look it up.
I think it's an ankle. I think it's a sprained ankle. Anyways, right. Ezekiel Elliott. The Cowboys are not playing this week, but he has been... they are saying that he is hoping to return next week after the Cowboys bye this week. Allen Lazard, wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, has a shoulder injury and was limited in practice again today. This is kind of an afterthought put in here, but Brandon Cooks is a whiny little baby and won't be playing tonight because poor baby didn't get traded earlier this week.
He just signed a 2-year contract.
This is also a guy who's like last season and the season before begged the Texans not to trade him because he was tired of getting traded mid-season. And then they gave him a deal. So baby Brandon Cooks can just sit there on the sidelines and cry about it. Jonathan Taylor, running back for the, I won't say the New England Colts, the Indianapolis Colts, has an ankle injury, and he was not present at practice today. So we need to keep an eye on that. And if, before we get to it at the end of the show, you can tune in on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. to get our last-minute injury updates, the lineup advice, whatever. Coffee with Chris, we call it, but I usually show up too. Matt Collins, wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders, was limited in practice today with a heel injury. Darren Waller, hamstring, missed a couple of weeks already, limited in practice today. So hopefully he plays. He's able to play this week. But man, after the last few weeks, I wouldn't hold my breath. Donald Parham, tight end for the Los Angeles Chargers, perhaps.
Oops.
Is a full participant in yesterday's practice. He is coming back from yet another concussion. So hopefully the Chargers kind of use some kid gloves with this one and kind of ease him back in. Joshua Palmer, or Josh Palmer, as it looks like he prefers to be called, has cleared the NFL's concussion protocol and should be playing this week. Keenan Allen, on the other hand, was in at practice yesterday and with his lingering hamstring injury. And even though he played last week, he was barely usable. So we might be talking more about Josh Palmer a little bit later in the show, Chris. Just a little hint there. Cooper Kupp, wide receiver for the Los Angeles Rams, of course, the Triple Crown winner from last year. He was present at the practice today for the media section, but he's dealing with an ankle injury. I'm guessing he's going to play this week. You know, he played last week with this ankle injury. He was fine. Cam Akers, due to personal reasons, speaking of big old crybabies, was a participant at the team's walkthrough today. Irv Smith, tight end for the Wisconsin, the Minnesota Vikings. What is a Wisconsin Viking? Anyways, he has been put on season-ending IR with a high ankle sprain that he might need surgery for. It was season-ending, right, Chris?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, which is weird for a high ankle sprain. But remember, folks, we're going to start seeing a lot more season-ending IRs as we are encroaching upon the halfway point of the NFL regular season. So it always throws me for a loop every single year when they're like, oh, and so they're shutting down so-and-so for the year, because I'm like, what the? But I mean, it's just, it's like week 11. Never mind.
Yeah, they're saying surgery may be necessary, and that's going to determine whether it's in season ending or not.
While I don't actually have it in my notes, but I'm going to bring it up. Speaking of potentially season-ending injuries, so the Detroit Lions are 1-6, right? And Jameson Williams, what was he from? Alabama, Georgia?
Sorry, which team?
The Detroit Lions receiver Jameson Williams.
Oh, Alabama, I believe.
Yeah, Alabama. He tore his ACL like in the national championship game this past January. Anyways, so a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, on it was October 26th, head coach Dan Campbell said that he was still at least
Ohio
a month
State.
out.
Oh, both Ohio State and Alabama. Most recently, Alabama. My apologies.
Look at you, Mr. Sexy. I go to the biggest schools, Jameson Williams. Anyways, Dan Campbell said that he would be out for at least another month, so that would put him more close to the beginning of December when he starts. I'm wondering if Detroit just shuts him down for the season and makes sure that he's 100% healthy for next year.
If there's still only 1, 2, 3, 4 games, what?
The only reason I could think of why they would actually play him is to potentially just get NFL reps. But even then, why risk another injury with a guy, Anyways, sorry, that was in my notes, but let's continue on. Damian Harris, running back for the New England Patriots. He has an illness, and he wasn't spotted at practice today. It's an illness, so he's probably going to be good to go for Sunday, and that's just kind of a minor thorn in the side of Ramondre Stevenson managers. Devontae Parker, sticking with the Patriots, was absent again today with a knee injury. Michael Thomas, sorry to just kind of roll over that. Devontae Parker barely registers on my radar. Michael Thomas, wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. I almost said Patriots. What is going on with me, Chris? He dislocated his second toe, and he's going to have foot surgery, and he be done for the season as well. Chris, I gave you props earlier in our Dynasty chat about this today, and it seems like you're kind of right about Michael Thomas. You said his career is probably over. I'm not quite sure about that, but you might be right. Turning 30 at some point, you might be right. He's just so far removed from any sort of relevance that
that's the problem. That's the big problem. Yep.
Kenny Golladay, on the the other hand, is not very far removed from relevance. Or he is. Kenny Golladay knee could return after the Giants' Week 9 bye, so that would be next week in Week 10.
I believe. He just seems to be
Corey,
cool sitting there. Anyway, go ahead.
Corey Davis, wide receiver for the Jets, so he was sidelined with a knee injury today. Elijah Mitchell, running back for the 49ers, is looking to return not this week, but next week. Granted, the 49ers are on bye this week, but he's hitting his target of returning next week. It's interesting to see what his role will be with CMC now present. More on CMC in a second. I know I haven't covered any of the big breaking trades. I'm getting to it, folks.
Okay. I'm looking at the list here. I was like, I hope he has it.
I'm getting there. Just be patient,
I like you saving
everyone.
it to the end. I like you saving it.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
There you go.
Noah Fant, tight end for Go Hawks, tight end for the Seattle Seahawks, was limited in practice on Wednesday due to hamstring injury. I don't have anything about today's. Same thing with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. They were both limited in practice yesterday. Lockett has a hamstring/rib injury, and Metcalf has a knee injury. Mike Evans for the Bucks, ankle, limited in practice today. I saw that. Ryan Tannehill, quarterback for the Tennessee Titans, was not in practice today with his ankle injury. I'm guessing he's going to probably miss this week again. And if you banked on Malik Willis being any sort of relevance last week, you were wrong. And probably going to be again this week. J.D. McKissick, no one cares, but he didn't practice today. Let's move on to these copious amounts of trades. I'm going to start with all of them, Chris. Mm-hmm. And by all of them, I mean just the offensive one. So there's some defense guys. I'm not going to cover them. We're fantasy football. Don't care. CMC, he got traded a couple weeks ago. We all know that. He's been full on freak out mode with the 49ers so far, especially last week. Holy bananas. Let's keep moving along to the Miami Dolphins, who it's two different trades, but
sure,
you might as well call them one, where the Dolphins traded for Bradley Chubb and a 2015 fifth-round pick from the Denver Broncos. Bradley Chubb being the linebacker/defensive end pass rusher, formerly of the Broncos.
Yeah,
the Broncos received Chase Edmonds, the 2023 first-round pick from the Dolphins, and a 2024 fourth-round pick. So, do we want to stop and talk about Chase Edmonds in Denver, or do we want to just keep on rolling?
One quick sentence or two is fine. I mean, what's his face? Nathaniel Hackett, the head coach, came out and said Gordon is still the starter. I think RB1. Yeah. I think it's the definition of a muddied backfield. I think Edmonds is clearly the better receiver out of the bunch. You got to remember they did have to put Mike Boone on IR. I think this is coincides with that move. It also says something about the fact that Miami just signed this guy, gave him a decent stack of cash, and is already he's out. So Mostert.
I'm wondering if
looking pretty good.
I'm wondering if Mostert just kind of staying healthy this entire year has been a big factor in that, and probably made me a better fit for
an insurance policy in Jeff Wilson.
And we're getting there. We're getting there. I kind of wonder if Chase Edmonds is what they kind of wanted Mike Boone. But like a rich man's Mike Boone be, like a better Mike Boone, a little bit faster guy, better pass catcher than, Latavius Murray. Yeah. Latavius Murray is more or less just good for short yardage work. He's been okay with the Broncos, but he's at this point, he's more of a bruiser in his career. Anything else to say about that?
About it.
Would you start Chase Edmonds this week? Last question about that.
No, I don't feel very strongly about starting any Denver running back moving forward.
Me neither, man. The trick question, Chris, the Broncos are on bye.
Oh, right. But... I'm the one who read it off at the beginning of the show.
Okay, let's move along to Chase Claypool. He was traded to the Bears from the Pittsburgh Steelers for a 2023 second-round pick. I mean, you got, if you're the Steelers, you got to be kind of happy that you're recuperating a second-round pick that you spent on
almost
Claypool.
Literally equal value, if not slightly better, depending on where the Bears finish up.
Yeah. And I'm not really into Claypool this year, but I think moving forward it could be intriguing. But the Bears are going to have to significantly improve their offensive line, and just so Justin Fields has more time to throw the ball. Yeah, that's about it.
Yes, exactly. A, offensive line. B, Fields needs to show me something through the air.
I think there's potential, but more on the Bears in a little bit.
But I'm not a Claypool guy.
Chris, did you see this next one coming? TJ Hawkinson getting traded to the Vikings. Apparently, Hawkinson came out and said that he was expecting a trade, so the Lions probably notified him that they were shopping him around. I think he's on the fourth year of his 5-year rookie deal, if memory serves correct. Anyways, Hawkinson and a bunch of picks got traded between the two teams. I'm not going to go into what the picks are, just for the sake of time. Sound good? Cool. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely.
Calvin Ridley, this is a dynasty thing, not redraft. Obviously, not redraft. Ridley's suspended for this season. He got traded from the Falcons, of course, to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a fifth and a second, a fifth this year or next year, and a second in 2024. I mean, dynasty-wise, yay. I don't know. I think the jury's still out on T-Law.
T-Law, how about the other, the second overall pick, Zach Wilson? I'll tell you what, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson are looking like Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston all over again, if not worse.
I think
fair. Winston put up a lot of yards and a bunch of touchdowns at least one year, so there's been some productivity there, although a ton of picks.
Winston
we might talk about Mariota later, but please go ahead.
Ew, no. Oh God. Winston also had some pass catchers too, whereas Trevor Lawrence didn't really last year. And even this year, like, they signed Christian Kirk, but he's not a one, you know? Like, he's showing that he's not a one. Zay Jones isn't a one. Like, they need a one, and I'm guessing they're really hoping that Calvin Ridley is their one, but I think they're going to spend a draft pick, a high draft pick this up and coming season on a
like
wide receiver,
alpha type of guy.
Yeah,
although, hey,
like a guy who they think can be their alpha, you know. Anyways, here's a bigger trade here. I mean, you know, Nyheim Hines, the Colts, is now with the Buffalo Bills. The Colts got Zach Moss, don't care, and a 5th round pick. Don't care. I think this is more about just moving on from Nyheim Hines, and it's just more of a Frank Reich has to be gone this season. But anyways, how do you feel about Hines in Buffalo, Chris?
I looked at it through my research a little bit earlier. Buffalo's not throwing quite as much as they were last year, but they tend to be a bit of a fast-paced, throw-a-lot offense, lean heavily on Josh Allen for good reason. So I like it in terms of, I think Hines is is better than Singletary coming out of the backfield. Singletary's been serviceable, I think and he might still get the early down work, Mr. Singletary, but I like Hines in a full PPR. It's early.
A league that gives you special teams work, because Hines can also do special teams as well.
Does he do punts? I think that's punts.
And kickoff.
Oh, both, really? I didn't know that.
I don't know if he wasn't really doing it for the Colts, though, so I don't really know what all these articles are talking about. I'm like, okay, whatever. Anyways, I think he did it in college. Anyways, let's move along to Jeff Wilson Jr. getting traded from the 49ers to the Miami Dolphins. Dude, okay, wait, just stop before we even continue. Mike McDaniels is just getting Kyle Shanahan's sloppy seconds in Miami. That's all he's doing. He's getting the cast out players.
Yeah, he's basically reproduced the entire basically the entire San Francisco backfield that he had when he was in San Fran. So I think there's a certain amount of comfort and reliability there for guys that he's coached before.
Yeah, and I mean, like, they traded and the Dolphins also traded real football good, not necessarily fantasy good. The Dolphins gave a 5th round pick for the Jeff Wilson too. All these running backs, after they get rid of Chase Edmonds, all these running backs are so easily replaceable next year, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, they're all dirt cheap on like such low value contracts, easy to get away from next year. This is just, you know, Mike McDaniel going to comfort safety blanket from the players he knows and from San Francisco. We'll talk about more in a little bit. But yeah, it's just odd the amount of players that the Dolphins have that played under McDaniel in San Francisco. Anyways, we're getting a little long on time, so let's keep rolling. We all know that James Robinson got traded from the Jags to the Jets, and he has been terrible. Same with Robbie Anderson going from the Falcons to the Cards. And that's probably about it, Chris. Am I missing anything at all? Nope. So, I mean, other than CMC, that was a big one. Was there any guys you were surprised that didn't get traded? I'm a little I'll go first. I'm a little surprised that, like, I had a name in mind and I completely blanked on it.
Surprised the Packers didn't pick up a wide receiver, although they tried to get Claypool.
They tried to get Claypool, and Yeah, which even then, like, and I put this in our dynasty group chat. I'm like, Claypool to the Packers is just more big-bodied, not very fast wide receivers. They need a fast wide receiver, and they don't have one necessarily. Christian Watson has yet another concussion.
Who used to be there? MVS or Scanlon?
Yeah,
it was MVS. Thank you. Oh, that's the same person. Peoples-Jones. That's the other guy I always get confused with for some reason. I guess it's the acronym for the initials. Whatever. MVS is who it was. He had speed. Never really panned out for them.
So that be news, Chris.
Cool.
I just talked a lot. Why don't you go first?
Okay, sounds good. I will start with my first Fave 5 at the running back position, which is what I've got this week. Raheem Mostert versus the Chicago Bears. The Bears are 4th worst in fantasy points per game to running backs, 2nd worst in rushing yards surrendered, and dead last in rushing touchdowns given up with 14, including 147 total yards and 3 touchdowns to Tony Pollard last week. And while they did limit Ramondre to 39 yards on the ground for 3.5 per carry, they did give up 8 catches to Ramondre Stevenson the week before last. Raheem has taken over the backfield, averaging 67.8% snap share since week 4. And in case you haven't heard, like Josh just told us, Chase Edmonds is now in Denver. However, I do expect Jeff Wilson, who just showed up, to be able to assimilate himself immediately given his experience with the head coach, Mike McDaniel, and, of course, the offense. But Mike McDaniel was in San Fran and chose to play Mostert over Wilson whenever Mostert was healthy. This is still Mostert's backfield, and he has a great matchup. I like him as a low-end RB1 this week.
Whoa. Yeah, right on. Should we pause for ZC's question here?
Yeah, let's give it a shot. ZC, if you're ready to fire away with that, asking for a friend, let us know.
I'll do my next guy, and then that'll give him time to type. Or my first guy, I guess. My first guy is Gabe Davis versus the New York Jets. So far, Gabe Davis is a wide receiver 31 on the season. He was a little bit of a disappointment last week, which should have been a decent game against the kind of the anemic Packers team in general. Surprisingly, this might be a lower scoring game this week, but or a lower point total for Gabe Davis this week. But he is averaging 12.3 points per game. And had he played every single game, remember he missed like week 2. And if you give him that 12.3 points per game till like week 2, that 1 week he missed, he would be the wide receiver 17, goes from 31 to 17. So it's been a little bit of a roller coaster for Gabe Davis, but with 6 teams on bye, and I am definitely going to start Gabe Davis in a game that might be lower scoring than people might think, but it's a you would think that the cornerback opposite is Sauce Gardner, who's been pretty darn good for, just in general, but let alone a rookie corner. DJ Reed, the opposite corner, is playing pretty well, but I think Gabe Davis is going to have a good shot at being a good, viable fantasy option this week. Think like a wide receiver too, like he's kind of been all season. It dips and ebbs and flows on it, but, still. Let's do ZC's question here real quick. He says Tyler Boyd or D'Onta Foreman for flex spot this week. I don't remember who the Panthers are playing.
Boyd plays the Panthers. It's Panthers at the Bengals and the Titans.
I think it's got to be Foreman after what he did last week.
Wow, my bad. The Panthers is who he plays for now, right? Oh, it's versus each other.
I think Tyler Boyd was a bit of a. I don't know if Tyler Boyd is very reliable. I thought he was going to be a good start last week, and he wasn't. So the entire Bengals offense was pretty ineffective last week.
He scored.
Who?
He scored Boyd?
Don't think he did.
Yeah, he did. Versus Cleveland last week. Yeah, he scored 1 touchdown. Very limited yardage. 3 for 38 yards, but 11.3 fantasy points. I'm really liking Foreman. I think I'm going to go a bit. I'm going to say gut, but I'm going to go Foreman. Yeah.
I wouldn't call him gut. I would just say Foreman's a better play.
I just think usage. I think he's going to get it.
Yeah, Chuba Hubbard might be back this week, but I'm not that scared about it, given what Foreman did last week. It was very surprising.
Yeah.
That's a good one for Mr. Don Moulter there. Go ahead with your next guy, Chris.
All right, my next guy up at the running back position of my Fave 5 is the guy on the thumbnail, Jamal Williams versus the Packers. Revenge game. Now, Jamal has had a couple stinkers and seems pretty touchdown dependent, but his usage has been great with or without Swift in the lineup, especially in the red zone. Only Nick Chubb has more rushing touchdowns than Jamal Williams, 8, and no one has more red zone carries than Jamal Williams with 12. And Swift is still banged up. In fact, head coach Dan Campbell even said he thinks he overworked Swift last week with 10 touches. Yeah.
Swift was not in injury news for some reason, too. With the second you said his name, I'm like, how did he escape the injury news?
Keep questionable. Going. By all means, vet that. Now let's talk about those dud games. Weeks 2, 5, and 7. Each of these games for Jamal was versus not necessarily dominant run defenses, but stout red zone kind of rushing defenses that are among the league's best in terms of rushing touchdowns surrendered. In this order, Washington, New England, and Dallas are tied for third best in rushing touchdowns surrendered, having only given up 4. And in the Dallas game, he fumbled at the goal line. So he could have very easily had one there against Dallas. Now he gets his old team, the Packers, who have given up 8 rushing touchdowns, which puts them tied for 11th worst. And the Packers are giving up the 3rd most rushing yards this season and the 13th most fantasy points per game to the running back position. I like Jamal as a high-end RB2 this week. Got another question. What's up, Nick? Nick says, what's up, guys? Is Drake London droppable? You think in a keeper league? I'm currently 7-1. And I need a kicker. London is the only quote droppable guy. Do I roll the dice with no kicker to keep London for 20?
So is this I'm guessing this is a...
He said keeper.
Oh, keeper. He says keeper league. My bad. Yeah, I probably.
Well,
yeah, probably. I mean, I would probably drop Drake London.
And of course, we're trusting Nick's judgment in that he's the
droppable guy.
And at 7-1, his roster is probably pretty stacked. He probably had a real nice draft.
If he's the only droppable guy on his team, then, and by keeper league, is this like a pseudo like dynasty league then? Like, it's such a...
I guess what Josh is saying is we would assume you've got better keepers if you're only keeping 2 or 3 or 4 a year, which is generally what a keeper league's going to be limited to.
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what. Yeah, I would definitely drop Drake London for a kicker.
We don't know what the quarterback position is going to look like for Atlanta. They're winning too many games right now to take a top, 5 quarterback in the draft.
And my other thing too is that, and this sounds dumb, but I feel like it is for the integrity of the league that you start a player if you can. He says you can keep 5.
That's a lot.
Yeah, but anyways, I think it's for the integrity of your league and fantasy football in general that if you can drop someone to pick up a kicker, in the sense that like they're not locked up by the site, then you kind of have rules,
to. If your commish is a stickler,
I think you should anyways. Like I don't like the rolling in a 0 spot. If you like, it's different dynasty where you literally can't pick up potentially a startable player sometimes.
Yeah.
But I was almost in that boat the other
Nick
day.
To elaborate, but let's assume Nick at 7-1 is going up against an inferior opponent, right? Let's just assume,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's not going up against another 7-1 or an 8-0 team.
There you go. That took the words right out of my mouth. I think you are up next, sir. By the way, ZC says thank you.
You're welcome, ZC. My next guy, as I alluded to earlier, is Josh Palmer versus Atlanta. They're giving up the 2nd most points per game. And Keenan Allen is probably going to play again this week. Big old question mark. You know who's not going to play this week, though? Mike Williams. He's still out with an ankle injury. Palmer is coming off a 9-game reception in week 7. They were off on bye last week, so there's that. I like him to build upon that one game. He only had 57 receiving yards in that game, and Palmer's only scored once this season. But I think that they're going to need to lean on Palmer, especially with Keenan Allen still being a little hobbled. I mean, it's Atlanta, so they might not need to throw the ball that much. But, other than that, it's DeAndre Carter. You know, what do you think, Chris? I mean, I like Josh Palmer's been kind of a pseudo diamond in the rough for me ever since last year when he got drafted by the Chargers, mainly because of Herbie, their quarterback. But I mean, with Keenan Allen still injured and Mike Williams,
6 teams on bye. Yeah, he's as fine as any other flex that we're going to talk about throughout the show.
He's probably not as good as my. He's probably way better than my sleeper, but we'll get to that a little bit.
Right. I've got a little bit more on Keenan Allen here in a second, but I don't think he's going to play. I'll put it that way.
I'm kind of wondering if he's not. I wonder if last week he might have tweaked that injury, and it's just.
And I think
hamstrings are twicky. They're tricky.
I think Gerald Everett has proven his targets will go up when Keenan and/or Mike Williams is out. Gotta throw it somewhere. But no, Palmer's fine. Palmer's good. Was that all you got on Mr. Palmer?
I try to keep my notes pretty short because I figured they would be long with the news segment.
Sure. Nick does chime in one more time. Says he has Herbert. That's quarterback, right? AJ Brown, CD, CMC is why he's 7-1. Josh Jacobs, Schultz, and Dallas defense. I would strongly consider Schultz. Because A, he's on bye this week, so you couldn't possibly be starting him, and B, he's on a franchise tag, so there's no, you know what I mean? Like, there's no guarantee he's in Dallas next year. He's a replaceable tight end type of guy. Yeah, great season last year, been banged up, chemistry looks like it's back with Dak, but, I mean, he's not a world beater, man. Like, although, tight end's tough. So I would throw Schultz in that bag with Drake London, too.
As far as being dropped, hard to drop a tight end of Schultz's potential.
Yeah, I added that stipulation. And he did also says, thanks, he's starting Palmer for CD on the bye. So he was already on board with your recommendation, sir. Dude. Up next.
Is it, wait, real quick, before you continue. Okay. Is it weird that people have started taking the thumbs up emoji as being passive aggressive? Like, I get the real sarcastic, like, okay, got it. But
are they? No, I guess I'm too much of a boomer. I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, apparently it's a thing.
Now I do very strongly and have for some time really disliked the laughing a little too hard face emoji. Oh my god, it's so annoying.
I don't really like the chocolate ice cream emoji all that much.
You mean the poop emoji?
No, chocolate ice cream.
Yeah, speaking of boomers. Okay.
I'm younger than you, but yet more of a boomer.
Right. I've had a couple moments this week, to be honest. Anyway, moving on. I'm going to give you Khalil Herbert versus the Miami Dolphins. David Montgomery, his backfield mate, has averaged 72 scrimmage yards and 0.67 touchdowns in this 3-week span. Herbert, in the same 3-week span, has averaged 78.3 rushing yards at 7.32 per carry and identical 6.7 touchdowns, which is basically 2 total touchdowns, 1 through the air, 1 on the ground, over the last 3 weeks on only a 30% snap share. That is incredibly efficient and, quite honestly, hard to maintain. But I don't think he has to maintain that ridiculous efficiency because the Bears will and should give him more snaps, targets, and rushes because he looks that much better than David Montgomery. And their offense is starting to hit a stride. They're starting to put it together. We touched on Fields a little bit earlier. Miami is a decent matchup versus running backs, giving up the 10th most fantasy points per game to the running back position and the 5th most rushing touchdowns on the year. I like Herbert as a low-end RB2 this week.
I like it. Mm-hmm. I feel like Khalil Herbert is the Tony Pollard of Chicago.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. I think maybe on a little bit less usage, though. Little bit. But no, I like it. I like it.
In the sense that, you get that Zeke is David Montgomery and that they can kind of do it all, but they're just don't look like they used to. Khalil Herbert's the young gun in town with same with Tony Pollard. His efficiency is, great.
I'm going to assume on the year Montgomery still has more rushing yards, but in the stats I was reading over the past, I think it was 3 or 4, similar to what I gave you 3 weeks, he has more rushing yards than Montgomery over the last 3 weeks. And Pollard, speaking of which, has more rushing yards than a lot more guys that you might think, including Zeke Jonathan Taylor, a bunch of others. I was like, wow.
Guys
like
who have missed time.
Well, I mean, he just did. And obviously, that gave Pollard the opportunity to do what he just did. So
Taylor missed time.
Yeah, of course. Yep.
Also hasn't been very good.
Dylan.
So the other day, sorry, I'm gonna kind of veer us off course again here real quick. I know we're kind of running a little long. No, this is football related. PFF put out their like kind of mid-season offensive line rankings. Guess where the Colts were? Oh, just a year ago, were in like the top ridiculous.
5. Now you're bottom 5, I imagine.
Dead last.
Now it's taken the last several weeks to get there.
Apparently they fired their offensive coordinator too.
That's like you said, what's his name? Frank Reich is probably gone.
Maybe the Bears were they were 24th in that, which is kind of surprising considering how bad they have been. But that speaks and PFF's is kind of subjective ranking. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Yes. See how proud I was of myself there?
Nailed it.
It's subjective, and but it's just like one of those things where they, oh man, it's rough to see the Colts.
It's a tool like any other tool, and I think our eyeballs tell us how bad the Colts offensive line has been. When you're switching to Sam Ehlinger, I mean, you've given up all hope on this season. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Do we want to address another question here before we continue?
Yeah, because I think we're in
Kyle Nagel needs our help. He asked, do I trade Lenny and someone for Connor and Sanders?
James Conner. I like Sanders for the Eagles. I assume it's who you're talking about. Why is his first name escaping me?
He hasn't been that great.
Oh, he's got a nice matchup tonight, but although last I looked, that game was tied at 14-14. If that touchdown stood.
Usually I have the game going on while we're doing the show, and I kind of forgot.
I'm really hoping the Eagles lose. Or do I trade Kelsey and Lenny for Etienne, Ertz, and Gabe?
Leonard Fournette hasn't been that great this year, but yet he's still the RB9 or something like that.
Has everything to do with that. One or two huge games through the air. He hasn't been very good on the ground.
No, but that's a lot of that is the Bucs offensive line is.
You would be counting on a lot. The reason I would deal Leonard Fournette is if I believe that the Bucs continue to lose games, continue to struggle on offense, and they need a jolt. They need to change something. Or they've lost so many games that they
need a new quarterback to do that.
And they're like, let's get a look at Rachaad White. I'm not gonna. Yeah, Brady hasn't been good, but I think it's the amalgamation of parts, not necessarily all on Brady's shoulders. I think Lenny hasn't been very good on the ground. Do I believe that they'll pull him without injury? No, I don't think so. Not in these next 2 weeks, and that's kind of where we're stuck. Goes on.
That'd be Singer. There's so many Kyles. Anyways, I think that if you can flip Lenny somehow for ETN, cool. I'm hanging on to Kelsey though, because you don't trade away the tight end one. I'm sorry, you got the tight end one. You hold the tight end one. The tight end one who is coming off of his bye too. So, and it's been, what did they say like a couple weeks ago? Travis Kelsey hasn't missed a game in like 5 years due to injury. He missed a game last year because of COVID, but yeah, he has not missed a game to injury. Like, he's been an Iron Man at the tight end position, and not only has been an Iron Man, he has been freaking fantabulous. So I'm holding on to Kelsey, but flipping ETN for, maybe you could flip ETN for Gabe Davis and something, or not ETN, sorry, Leonard Fournette.
Here's a doozy. I'm going to cut through this one real quick since it's so lengthy. Basically, what Kyle Singer is asking is if he's got a bunch of guys on bye week 14, and he's wondering if we should move some guys. Yeah, I kind of agree with you that you'll figure it out by the time you get there.
We're 9, but yeah.
Jones, Monty, Hunt. Hunt, sure. If you can get something for Hunt, sure. Move him.
I don't know if you can get anything for
Murray in Denver, right? Is that the only?
I just don't know if you can get anything for Kareem Hunt or
Murray.
I mean, maybe
I'd like to move Patterson. Either Hunt, Murray, or Patterson. Sure, if you can shake it up, deal them from now to week 14.
If it's honestly, if it's not a keeper league or a dynasty league, trade Pollard right now. He's on his bye. He's not going to be worth a whole lot, maybe in a couple of weeks, anyways. So if you can get top dollar for Pollard, why not do that now? You know,
yep.
And then get someone who can help fill in for your bye week hell in week 14, right?
Yep. Kyle says, like the channel, guys. Yeah. Sub below, guys. As we mentioned earlier, we're live on Sunday mornings too for news and injuries for about an hour at 10 a.m. Central Standard. I think you're up, Josh.
I am up. He says, honestly, who is a good trade for Lenny? I mean, can't get Stevenson or Pierce.
What did he do last week? I mean, I'd like to sell high.
Leonard Fournette. What could you really get for Leonard Fournette? I mean, if you're looking for another running back, hard to trade running back to running back. But I mean, if you get a wide receiver for him, maybe shoot for something like a...
Rams aren't great against RBs off the top of my head, and that's who they play week 9. Maybe you can sell high after this week on Lenny if he gets freaking 10 catches again, which is definitely in the realm of possibility.
Yeah, he could also do something on the ground too. I mean, I would hope that.
Yeah,
I would hope that he does something good on the ground, just so that you can be like, see, he's still got it. You know, but you could.
Stop. Never mind. Bad joke. I'm gonna stop.
I know you're not a Leonard Fournette fan, Chris, but could you maybe trade him for? I'm looking at the standings right. I'm looking at the standings right now. What?
Dan, so Kyle, you basically just asked the same question, Kyle. You're answering Kyle's question. He's just chiming in. Kyle Nagel says Stevenson or Pierce. I mean, I have Stevenson and Pierce in a couple of different leagues. No, I would not do that.
No. But here's what I'm thinking. Maybe Deebo Samuel?
Yep.
I just don't think you're going to be able to trade a running back for a running back, you know? It rarely works out that way. If you can, yeah.
Unless you 2-for-1 it, or we're talking dynasty.
But you're going to have to wrong way 2-for-1 it, you know? Like, you're probably going to have to get 2 in return for Lenny.
Gosh, I don't see it that way, but whatever, man. It's show you.
Who are you to judge, all right, man? Like, don't judge me on that. You just keep your judgments to yourself. I'm next. We're starting this back up again here.
Let's do it.
Let me write this down real quick, just so I know for editing purposes. Anyways, my next guy is, I believe we're on to Adam Thielen. He is going up against Washington. So far, Thielen has been a bit of a disappointment in 2022. He's the wide receiver 36, and he's averaging 9.5 points per game. But he's going up against the Washington Commanders, who are giving up the 7th most points per game to wide receivers. Thielen should get a mix of Benjamin St. Juste and Rashad Wildgoose, literally his real name, who are PFF's 75th and 90th ranked cornerbacks, respectively. So I like Thielen's chances of getting his 3rd touchdown this week. That's really why Thielen has been kind of ineffective this year, is that he's just not getting those touchdowns. Like I don't know, like it seems like the Vikings are scoring from afar, because even Dalvin Cook doesn't have a lot of touchdowns in the red zone either. You know what I'm saying, man? Like, anyways, so Adam Thielen is my guy this week. Great match. Great, wide receiver cornerback matchup for Thielen this week. So that's why he is one of my guys, especially on a 16 bye. Why not?
Absolutely. Thank you for the sub. I'm going to move on to my next guy. Oh, where am I at? Deion Jackson.
Throat's a bit froggy.
Deion Jackson. We talked a little bit about JT in the beginning of the show. I don't think he's going to play again. Yeah, I don't think he's going to play.
I think he's going to, but, keep going.
Absolutely. To give you a little bit of context here on Deion Jackson, he's had 2 games where he's had an 11 and an 18% target share. That's great. That's great for a running back. This is a tough matchup, though, but let me continue. Every time Jackson has received significant work, i.e. more than 10% snaps, he has produced. It probably had a lot to do with the Hines trade, to be quite honestly. I think they felt confident that Deion Jackson could get it done through the air. When receiving... Oh, where were we? When receiving more than a 10% snap share, which was weeks 5 and 6, he has averaged 110 total yards and caught 7 of his 7 targets for 0.5 and averaged 0.5 touchdowns. So 100% catch rate, averaging half a touchdown per game and 110 total yards. It's great. As mentioned earlier in the show, JT has missed practice both Wednesday and Thursday. But even if JT goes, he won't be 100%. I think that's almost a guarantee. And with Hines out of the way, Nyheim Hines out of the way, this is an easy flex play for Deion, especially in a full PPR. Now, New England isn't a great matchup, as I said, but they did give up a 25-yard receiving score to the aforementioned Khalil Herbert. And David Montgomery and Herbert did combine for 27 carries, 124 yards, and 1 touchdown on the ground. I like Deion as a low-end RB2 this week.
Interesting. Yeah, if he doesn't play this week, then yes. Did you happen to... Yeah. I'm sorry, I was replying to someone in the chat. Did you happen to say that he has caught all 14 of his targets so far this season?
I did. I said he's averaging catching 7 of his 7 targets. 7 receptions, 7 targets is what he's averaging over that 2-week span where he got.
Or all 14 of his targets on the season. 6 one way, half a dozen the other, right, Chris?
Exactly. Average.
Okay. Chris, my next guy is kind of 2. It's Juju and MVS of the Chiefs. Call me a pessimist, but I don't think the Chiefs really have a viable running game. I'm really, really sick of Pacheco talk and people just like, these running backs are on a high-powered offense, so they got to be worth something. I'm so sick of it. Anyway, so but the Chiefs, even if the Chiefs do get up big early against Tennessee, they just don't have the running backs to get the job done. Like I just said, it's not like it's hurting them either. But the backs they do have are great. Quick side note here. I already went through all that. Anyways, I'm bringing up the Chiefs backs because the Chiefs will throw the ball and then they'll throw the ball some more. That's what the Chiefs do. Mahomes' lowest passing attempts was actually last week, and that was 34. His lowest passing attempts in a game was 34. Justin Fields took like half the season to get to 34 attempts. That's not true, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
And like I said, I'm sorry, when I said it was last week, it was actually in week 7. The last game they played. Anyways, I guess out of this pair, I kind of have to go Juju. Screw MVS. You know, Juju's averaging 10.9 points per game versus MVS is 6.8. You know, if you need a Hail Mary shot for, there's MVS. But I'm saying play Juju this week, and I'm keeping Kadarius Toney, who the Chiefs just traded for, which somehow slipped through on the news section as well.
Fair.
What the hell website?
Well, it didn't happen at the deadline. It happened a couple days before, just like the...
No, but I still covered CMC and some... Anyways, sorry. I'm going to sit here and whine a little bit more. Anyways, if you can avoid using Kadarius Toney this week, I would, just to kind of see what you have. Like, does he get used a lot? I mean, he was just traded for on Monday.
Yeah, he hadn't played yet for him. He hasn't had it.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to remember like at what point in the week he actually got traded for. I'm like, it is Thursday, not Saturday, and I'm all discombobulated. I'm tired.
It was before the deadline, but I think it was earlier in the week. I think you're right. I am starting MVS in a, as you put it, desperation. I got nowhere else to go.
I'm having
in a 12 team redraft. I got nowhere else to go.
I have my next guy is the desperation play, but I'll let you do your last guy.
My last RB is a little bit of that flavor also, but I think I've got one more before that. No, I don't. This is my last guy, Nyheim Hines versus the Jets. Now, the Jets aren't a good matchup on the ground versus running backs, but that's not why I'm recommending him, nor why the Bills traded for him. It's his pass catching skills, and Hines is one of the league's best, despite missing two games basically, the game he missed and the game he got injured in. He has the 11th most receptions among running backs and caught an astonishing 25 of his 28 targets from Colts quarterbacks. Wow.
Is that wait before you keep going? Mm-hmm. Is that on the season or since he's came in the league?
This season. Totally.
Okay. Sorry, keep going.
Given the 2 missed games, he's still.
I don't know why I thought that. I'm tired.
Back to the Jets. While they are stout versus run and generally have been playing good defense, they did just give up 9 catches out of 10 targets for 87 yards to the Patriots running backs in Week 8. Furthermore, in the previous season, Hines played the Jets and amassed 108 total yards and 1 touchdowns. I like Hines as a low-end flex option in a pinch, especially in a full PPR.
Nice. You want a desperation play here, Chris?
Yeah, you warned me. I eventually warned you.
Oh, it gets worse than this in my sleeper. It gets worse than this.
It's thin.
Darnell Mooney is my guy. And it is my first guy to talk about and the player in this matchup because there's more to come. This should be a bit of an offensive scoring game. The Dolphins it's all a foregone conclusion that the Dolphins are going to be scoring some points on the Chicago Bears. We didn't cover it in the news segment because it was all defensive guys, but the Bears traded away their best pass rusher in Robert Quinn and their what is it? I think it's a lead tackler in the league so far. And Roquan Smith. Smith went to the Ravens. Robert Quinn went to the Eagles. Don't quote me on that. Anyways, So the Bears have semi-dismantled their defense. And like I said, they're going to have to score some. They're going to have to probably throw to score some points to go up against the Dolphins. So. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the Eagles. Anyways, Mooney doesn't have a touchdown yet, and this is definitely you're going to take a leap of faith to start Mooney this week. I certainly have to start Mooney this week in a league. I don't like it, but it's not a terrible matchup. The one problem with this matchup is that the Dolphins' defensive numbers are a little deceiving as their cornerbacks are coming back and starting to get healthy and getting back up to NFL game speed for coming back from injury. But I have faith that the Bears can get Mooney rolling, especially with the newly acquired Chase Claypool potentially commanding at least a little attention from the Dolphins cornerbacks, potentially giving Darnell Mooney a little bit more room to run. So I like Darnell Mooney this week.
I don't hate it. I don't
like him. I don't love him this week. I am like it's like I'm doing one last shot before I take a girl home that I'm going to probably regret the next day.
All right.
Let me do a tight end first because we want to do your last one. Okay.
Sure.
Robert Tonyan is the guy who Robert Tonyan is the guy who I am recommending first. He's averaging only 6.5 points per game, but the Lions are allowing 59 yards per game and 5 receptions per game to the tight end position. They've also given up 5 touchdowns this season. That's tied for the third most. And so far, much like the majority of the Packers players, Tonyan has been a little bit of a disappointment. He has only 1 game over 10 points this year, but to end my Tonyan talk on a high note, in 2021, in the 1 game that Tonyan was healthy for against the Lions, he did score 12.7 points. So there is hope for him this week. Who's your first tight end guy, Chris?
I have 2 quick honorable mentions, if you don't mind me knocking those out real quick. Reason this first guy is an honorable mention is he's too highly rostered, but I want to make sure folks hear this name and get him in his lineup. Gerald Everett, we touched on a little bit earlier in the show. Somehow Keenan Allen's hamstrings got worse during the bye week. He said himself the next time he plays, he won't be on a snap count and it'll be all or nothing, i.e. he's going to wait till he's 100%. That could take a while for a 30-year-old wide receiver. Everett's 6.4 targets per game rank him 7th among tight ends. So get a long, hard look at Gerald Everett. This next name is a deep dive, maybe more of a dynasty thing. Period. James Mitchell, the Lions tight end. Just a heads up, he was a nice downfield threat in college, averaging 17 yards per catch. And while he is behind veteran Brock Wright is more of the tough-nosed blocker type, and Mitchell could be the move tight end, the pass catcher type. Again, deeper dive, dynasty type of pickup here. My first real tight end streamer of the week is one Mike Gesicki. Not gonna lie, I struggled with this. What would have been second? I guess I put it out of order, but I struggled with this. Getting a second tight end streamer in here, I really struggled with it. The first guy I got, it was pretty easy. I wanted to include Dulcich, but he's on a bye. Then I looked long and hard at Tyler Conklin coming off a great game, but he has an awful matchup versus the Bills, so I just couldn't do it to you guys. So I give you a touchdown-dependent tight end in what would have been perceived as a bad matchup, because that's how bad it is this week. Mike Gesicki has been scoring lately, but the Bears are good versus the tight end, or at least they were. 10th best, only giving up 7.5 fantasy points per game to the tight end position. But as mentioned earlier in the show, the Bears traded Roquan Smith to the Ravens, and he was a big part of their defense, especially versus tight ends. Gesicki has been on a bit of a tear lately, averaging a 57% snap share, 6 targets, 4 receptions, 1 touchdown per game over the last 3 weeks. Dolphins are a great offense, and I like Gesicki's upside as a low-end tight end 1 this week.
You know, Chris, I vomited in my mouth when you said his name, and since then I have since
he's been scoring.
Swallowed that vomit, and it just surprisingly tasted like cinnamon rolls.
Most, as you and me both know, most tight ends are touchdown dependent. I said that right. I really thought I said touchdowns are tight end dependent.
Sometimes they are, Chris. Sometimes they are.
Exactly.
Chris, does it feel like Tyler Higbee should be higher than tight end 16?
That's what he is on the year?
That's what he is on the year.
I think that's a telltale sign of how much the Rams have struggled in the past 3 or 4 weeks.
For the season, really. But anyways, here's the thing, though. Robert Tonyan, the guy who I just talked about, he's tight end 15. Better than Higbee. It just seems weird. I've had time I feel like I've been watching the Rams trip and fall like pretty much all season, and perhaps I'm like Mandela affecting this into my brain, but like I really would have put good money on the fact that Higbee was a top 10 tight end. Regardless, they're going up against the Bucks, which you kind of alluded to earlier with the Bucks being the Rams being bad. I got that all backwards. I got that backwards. Anyways, regardless, he's going up against the Bucks, who are allowing the 7th most points per game to tight ends, and Higbee is averaging almost 5. I think it's supposed to be more than 5 receptions a game, a little bit more than 5 receptions per game, and almost 45 yards. Hasn't scored yet. Maybe this is the week he gets his first touchdown. So, Tyler Higbee. It really feels like he's just out there getting targets every week.
Well, yeah, his targets were amazing for I don't know off the top of my head, first 3 or 4
They're
weeks.
They're actually kind of all over the map, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
They don't have a second receiver to speak of, and Higbee really stepped up, but it hasn't been good lately. Right.
Yeah. So go ahead with wait, before you continue, Chris.
You ready?
Is Isaiah likely a must roster if you are a Mark Andrews manager? And before you answer, is he rosterable even if you are not a Mark Andrews manager?
Both are very likely. No, yes, absolutely, to answer your
question. Just
absolutely.
Shoot me. Jesus.
Absolutely. Mark, as I think Josh touched on earlier in the show, Mark Andrews did not practice Thursday. Ankle, shoulder injury. Let's pay attention.
Which is really like his Tuesday or Wednesday practice, considering it's a Monday night game.
Let's pay attention to the Friday practice report since it's a Monday night game.
And Saturday.
If Andrews plays, he won't be 100%. I even made a joke in my I do a fantasy league recap, a weekly recap, and I joked that the Ravens are going to hold him together with duct tape for the rest of the season. That's an official
duct tape and prayers.
Yeah, duct tape and prayers officially. Likely should get more snaps and targets with Rashad Bateman being out for the year on IR with foot surgery. He's produced very well both in the preseason and when Andrews has been out. Or left the game like last week. I think it's 16 fantasy points off the top of my head. Forgive me.
It was like 18.
Yeah, maybe a full PPR, but either way.
No, I think that was half. Anyways, keep going.
7. Scored a touchdown.
Okay, fine. Let's keep going.
And I think he's been a little bit involved even when Andrews has been out there. Nothing great for fantasy, but no. Again, I think even if Andrews is out there, I think they're going to monitor his snaps. As Josh likes to say, keep him on a pitch count.
I do not like to say that, Chris. And another thing about Isaiah Likely is like even preseason, like I don't know if you remember, like way back in like what was it, like March or early April when we were doing like pre-draft stuff and like guys we like coming out of college. Isaiah Likely was one of those, and I actually, no pun intended, liked his landing spot in Baltimore because they like the tight end. They do a lot of 2 tight end sets and everything.
I mean,
but they actually drafted Charlie Coster out of Iowa State first, so that was a bit of a bummer. What?
But both were but before Likely in the same draft?
Yes,
but both are kind of were like what, 5th and 6th and 7th round picks maybe,
something like. No, I thought Coster was like a 4th and Likely was like a 6th. Anyways, yeah, Coster is like either he just came off IR recently or is still on IR. I can't remember exactly which, but this team is like the like they have been praising this kid for like since day one, like since mini camp. You know, like he looks really good. You know, there's a lot of promise with him, and so on and so on. And I think even if Coster had stayed healthy this entire time, I think Likely has probably still outplayed him at this point.
Yeah, so
you know, like it's
a little narrative rich, but Baltimore drafts and coaches up good tight ends. Simple.
For sure. And Likely was a good pass catching tight end coming out of college.
I believe Ozzie Newsome is still in the front office, is still the GM.
I believe this is his very last year.
Okay. Is Ozzie Newsome in the Hall of Fame? If he's not, he was a really good tight end in his day. I'm not sure if
I don't know, but I know that there's only one kicker in the Hall of Fame, and I think that's a damn travesty.
You mean punter?
Still kicks the ball.
You messed up and you know it. Who's up?
Let's move along with anyways.
My quarterback, right?
If you want it to be.
I think I'm up, right?
Excuse me. I'm gonna have to let me get my vomit bag real quick because I'm pretty sure I know who it is.
Marcus Mariota versus the Chargers. All right, he is. I do have some honorable mentions. Okay, one, but we're gonna get to that later. Marcus Mariota versus the Chargers. 38% rostered. The Chargers are average versus quarterbacks, giving up the 15th most fantasy points per game to the position, but are 8th worst, giving up 13 passing touchdowns on the season. Furthermore, they are awful versus RBs, giving up the 2nd most fantasy points per game to RBs. Chargers at Falcons is tied for the highest over-under in Week 9 at 50 points, and the Falcons are only 3.5-point underdogs. All that is to say, the Falcons want to run the ball, and given the predicted score by Vegas, the Falcons could see scoring opportunities. And Mariota is a fine quarterback streamer headed into Week 9. And let's not forget, he is the quarterback 8 on the season. After setting season highs last week versus the Panthers with 253 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. Granted, it took overtime to get there, but hey, his legs should help it get it done this week. That is my quarterback streamer of the week. Marcus Mariota, quarterback 8.
Interesting.
I know.
And by interesting, I mean,
bleh. All right, continue, vomit face.
My first quarterback is your honorable mention, Justin Fields. So I'll just skip him until you start talking about him. My real guy is T-Law or Trevor Lawrence versus the Rams. Right?
Yeah, I think so. I'll vet that.
I believe that is actually the Raiders. I don't know why I think that says the Rams.
Yeah, Raiders.
Yeah, it clearly says LVR. So I'm just, anyways. Trevor Lawrence didn't have a great game last week. That's okay. But he's getting the Raiders, who are giving up the most points to opposing quarterbacks per game. Fantasy points, that is, at 22.9. It's not a sexy pick, but if you like playing matchups, it don't get much better than going up against the Raiders. So Trevor Lawrence is my guy. Just quick and dirty.
Quick and dirty. That's how I like it. My honorable mention of the quarterback position, speaking of mobile quarterbacks, Justin Fields. First, I'd like to apologize for providing a quarterback sleeper last week that I did not recommend in starting in said week last week. Especially since he was the quarterback 5 last week versus Dallas. And is now the quarterback 11 on the season. So it's almost like...
Who was it?
Justin Fields.
Oh,
Justin Fields,
okay.
yeah. It's almost like I shouldn't have recommended him because I didn't recommend starting him. I was like a preemptive pickup, etc. But it's almost like I should have recommended starting him. But who saw that coming? So again, he was the quarterback 5 last week. He is now the quarterback 11 on the season. Unfortunately, his roster percent is a little too high at 65%.
Like me, man. Like me.
He is averaging. That is not correct. That should be the last 4 weeks, and I didn't put that. But I believe it's the last 4 weeks. He's averaging 173 passing yards, 76 rushing yards, 2 total touchdowns, and 22.9 fantasy points over the last, again, I believe it's 4 weeks. But again, 65% rostered. If he's out there and you need quarterback help, pick him up. As I mentioned last week, his upcoming schedule is great. He gets Miami this week, then Detroit, then Atlanta. That's why I wanted to be sure and mention his name. And
it's been the past 3 weeks, just to correct you on that one. But also, Miami is allowing the 7th most points, fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, and they've given up the 5th most rushing yards to quarterbacks so far in the year, too. I don't believe you said the other one of those things. So,
no, I just said he's got 3 great matchups, including Miami this week.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it's the last 4 weeks, dude. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, the last 3 weeks is what I was looking at because that's he scored over 19 points. That's why I was like, eh. Anyways, let's move along to our sleepers. Who's your first sleeper, Chris?
First and only sleeper is...
It's still your first.
That's fair. That's fair. Romeo Doubs. I think I said it right. Doubs came through versus one of the best defenses in the league in Alan Lazard's absent last week, catching an amazing acrobatic 19-yard score from Aaron Rodgers and finishing with 62 yards on catching 4 out of his 7 targets. Lazard should be back, but Rodgers has historically torched Detroit, which is who they play, for more than 2 scores per game, 252 yards over his career versus the Lions. And the Lions are as bad as ever on defense this season. This should be a get-right game for the Packers offense and for Doubs coming off a strong outing. I like him as a desperation flex / sleeper this week in a premium matchup.
You think you're desperate to start Romeo Doubs, whatever?
Can't leave them.
How about this? How about this for desperation?
Yeah.
Trent Sherfield is my sleeper this week.
Woo!
He is
he plays for.
This is a long shot, but this is the Bears against the Dolphins, or vice versa, however you want to look at it. Though there will be points this week in this game. And Sherfield is yet another guy who came over to Miami from San Francisco along with Mike McDaniel. He's only topped 40 yards twice and has had 3 or more receptions only twice in a game. Anyways, his stat percentages have doubled from last week to week 1. It's a long shot, but desperate times call for Trent Sherfield. When Sherfield does get on the field, he will likely face Kyler Gordon or Kindle Vildor, neither of which are very good corners for the Bears. So Trent Sherfield. That is my sleeper for this week.
A 45.5 point over-under for the Dolphins at Bears. Not too shabby.
Yeah, that sounds pretty close. That sounds about right.
I don't mean to make it gospel, and
I would say over, but
I probably would too, especially given your tout there. I mean, it's Vegas. They're right a lot. I'm not trying to make them gospel. I'm just saying it's a tool, just like PFF. It's a tool to go by if you're trying to predict a.
They're very objective, those Vegas people.
Got it right again, buddy. I can't.
Really, I thought I got it. I thought I got it wrong on purpose.
I was just about to say I can't wait for somebody to correct me for.
I said objective, or isn't it subjective when
they are subjective like PFF? You're right. You're right. No, they're right. It was a joke. I get it now.
Damn it! It screwed it up. Chris, we've been Amazing Fantasy Football. I'm going to get out here on a high note. You can check us out every Thursday at 8 a.m., 8 p.m. Central Time, of course. On Sunday mornings at 10 a.m., where we do the last-minute injury updates and lineup questions and all of that jibber-jabber. We usually just kind of banter about football and whatever else comes to our brain, too. Chris, where can they find you on the Twitter?
They can find me at ChrisAFFB.
Which, Chris, I'm not going to lie, I'm not liking this Elon Musk thing about Twitter so far, so I might hop over to the IG.
Yeah, I wonder what fantasy's like on the IG, but
I don't know, but I'm willing to check it out.
I was going to mention that to you also. Did I get my handle right? At AFFB Chris. I said it right, didn't I?
And mine is Josh AFFB. And you can kind of ask questions, just chat, DM, whatever. I talk about just about anything.
Speaking of being souring on Twitter, I can't talk. The link to our Discord is in the description also, folks, along with our podcast.
Which we've also soured on podcasts and Discord and everything else. Because I'm just a bitter, crotchety old 30-something. Until next week, folks, or until Sunday, I have been Josh. He has been Chris. And I wish you the best of luck.
Have an amazing weekend.
And stick to...
Welcome back.
Hey.
Stopped the recording a little late. That's okay. You'll see the transition. It'll be easy.
Like me. Anyways, Chris, I wanted to talk about something real quick, and then we can do whatever the hell you want to do. So, TJ Hawkinson just got traded to the Vikings. Do you know how the Vikings... I know this is a different head coach and yada yada, but do you know how the Vikings tight ends have finished like the last 2 seasons?
It's been abhorrent. I think I got that vocabulary word right. It's been bad, really bad. Awful.
Yeah, they were like, it was like last year it was like the tight end 20, and the year before that, and it was like last year Conklin was the tight end 18, and before it was the Irv Smith at the tight end 22. So I'm a little worried and about.
I think he'd have to go back to Kyle Rudolph days when he was touchdown happy.
Yeah.
To get a tight end 1 out of it.
Yeah, and maybe Hawkinson can do that, but man, I don't know. I feel like if you're a Hawkinson manager, you have to be a little disappointed in the landing spot, Like
Cousins was. What am I trying to say? Cousins at Washington supported. Oh, who was it? I'm blanking, Josh. They had a good tight end at Washington. It was well before Logan Thomas days. I am blanking. But he was a hot ticket for a whole minute, like 2 seasons or something.
Kellen Winslow.
No. This is gonna
Mikey Ditka.
Bring it back a little bit. That was a little too far.
Algie Crumpler.
Old Washington tight ends. This is gonna be a horrible search. All time. Jordan Reed. It was Jordan Reed. That's who it was.
Oh yeah, that guy that was healthy for 1 season.
Yeah. Hey man, it was pretty good. No, what I'm saying is Cousins did support Jordan Reed, and when he was healthy, was pretty darn good. But I mean, that's a lot of conjecture. That's a lot of narrative there to attach to Mr. Hawkinson. I agree, not great, and you're also on the tail end of a pretty disappointing season. And to make matters worse, you get that little carrot in front of you, on the stick in front of you on that 40-point game he had 3 or 4 weeks ago. Sans, there was no Amon-Ra, there was no Chark, I think there was another receiver out for him. And they had an amazing matchup, and it was like, oh, hey, 41 fantasy points or whatever the heck it was from Hawkinson. So it's like, oh, yes, maybe we're back in it. But I think that's not the case. I think, yeah, you're a little disappointed with the landing spot.
I was trying to trade for Brandon Cooks and just about, whatever.
Now, there is the Thielen age thing, like, Thielen's probably not long for this.
That's
league.
The one thing that I was thinking about with Hawkinson is that Thielen's probably getting a little long in the tooth for his NFL careers go.
I think it's showing this year a little, yeah.
And it did last year too with the injuries. Whereas before then, Thielen was pretty rock solid. Anyways, I feel like
very touchdown pendant for a wide receiver too. You know what I mean? Like, which
last
kind of like
year,
a tight end. Like, I think if you want to play the positive side, yeah, I think Hawkinson could fill a red zone touchdown getter kind of role.
Yeah,
obviously with Jefferson being the alpha and whatever you want to call it.
Sam64 says, would you start PJ Walker or Patrick Mahomes? And then there's Patrick Mahomes all day, every day. You have Patrick Mahomes, you start Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless
I'm stuck.
You have Josh Allen, and then it's why do you do that to yourself?
That's him. Who do you watch? The Shanghai Sharks? No, the Taipei. I'm so confused. Would you start PJ or Mahomes? Yeah. I mean,
I feel like this is like some sort of like drug deal going down in our chat.
I think they might be league mates. Maybe I don't know. But, hey,
I don't know.
Thank you for the participation in the viewers.
It'd be great if it was a drug deal going down in our chat. Just some sort of secret code going on.
For real.
Oh, Chris, I'm real froggy tonight.
Let us know if you have any lineup question besides the Mahomes one. Let us know if you have any lineup questions, Sam and Thomas. Help you out.
Otherwise, I'm kind of ready to go.
I
gotta put this into a podcast format and go to bed.
Run a little long too.
Go to work tomorrow and
got an edit to do. But anyway, Sam, Thomas, give us a sub down below. We're live every Thursday evening at 8 p.m. Central Standard to address our Fave 5 starters at the RB and running wide receiver position. We give you streamers at the tight end and the quarterback position, and then we give you a sleeper every Thursday night. And Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Central Standard, we give you the news and injury updates and last-minute lineup advice before kickoff. That's all I got.
You know what I got, Chris?
A boomer soul.
I was going to say I got a feeling. But I'm high and believing that I'm in love with me. Have a good night, everyone.
Adios.